Hi, this video is all about an important feature of geology that we call orogenies. Now, orogenies are periods of mountain building. They're caused by plates colliding. And the mountains in Britain have been formed in exactly this way. Now, of the orogenies that have affected Britain, there are really three important ones that we need to consider. If you remember looking at our geological timescale in the last lesson, on the right hand column there we identified when these key orogenies occur. We're not particularly going to worry about the ones that happen in the Precambrian. The three that happen though through the Paleozoic, Mesozoic and Cenozoic, they're the important ones because they've really had a big effect on Britain's geology. We have the Caledonian orogeny that occurred at the end of the Silurian, beginning of the Devonian. The Variscan orogeny, which happened at the end of the Carboniferous and the beginning of the Permian. And the Alpine orogeny that affected the Paleogene period. Now, when we're looking at these orogenies, we can see different effects on the geology of Britain, depending on where the plate boundary was. So the Caledonian orogeny is the one that's had the biggest impact on Britain's geology, because Britain was right on the plate boundary. This is where what's now England, Wales and the southern part of Ireland were on one continent. Scotland and the north of Ireland were on a different continent. Those continents came together and collided. They created the Caledonian orogeny and the Caledonian mountains that we have here in Britain. I'll talk more about those in a moment. The Variscan orogeny at the end of the Carboniferous period was when Britain crashed into Pangaea. Now that happened, the plate boundary was just to the south of us, it was in northern France. But it did have an effect on parts of Britain's geology, particularly around South Wales and the southwest of England. The final one of these, the Alpine orogeny, as the name would suggest, affected the Alps. Britain was really right on the fringes of the effects of the Alpine orogeny. We don't have big mountains here. What we have are some very, very gentle hills. Okay. This is a geological map of Britain. You've got a slightly simplified version of this that was emailed out to you. We're very lucky in Britain. We have an immense diversity of rock types and rock ages in what's actually quite a small area. There is a general pattern that we can see of rock ages. Generally, rocks are older the further north and west you go, and they get progressively younger the further south and east you go. It's not an exact rule, but it's a general one. If we have a look in a bit more detail at parts of this map, this is Scotland, Northern Ireland and the northern part of England. We have rocks in the far north of Scotland there, Precambrian in age, lots of granites intruded into them. In southern Scotland as well, going over into Northern Ireland, we can see that purple band of Cambrian, Ordovician, Silurian rocks, again with granites intruded. Similar rocks then in the Lake District and the Isle of Man. Those mountains there are created by the Caledonian orogeny. So the Lake District and the southern uplands and the Scottish Highlands are Caledonian mountains. And the granites we see in them are from that same orogeny. If we look at southern England and Wales, we see those same Purple Age rocks in Mid and North Wales, those are Caledonian orogeny folded rocks as well. But you'll see further south from that, we don't see rocks of that age. The rocks there are much younger. Now, it's a rule of an orogeny that it can't affect rocks that are younger than the orogeny. It's only the rocks that obviously exist when those plates come together that get affected by the orogeny. So the Cambrian, Ordovician and Silurian rocks can only be affected by the Caledonian orogeny. The rocks we see here from the Carboniferous periods, the Devonian period, so these are the ones in South Wales and in the southwest of England, these are affected by the Variscan orogeny. We have a big fold here in South Wales. It defines the coalfield. That was created during the Variscan. The granites that we see characteristically in the southwest of England, places like Dartmoor, Bodmin Moor, Land's End, the Scilly Isles, all of those are Variscan in age. The final orogeny we have to think about is the Alpine orogeny. Now, the Alpine orogeny just very gently wrinkled up some of the very young, softer rocks that we find in the southeast of England. So the rocks of sort of Jurassic, Cretaceous age are very gently folded in some very gentle hills in the southeast. They're a feature, I suppose, of the Alps. Okay, what I'd like you to do is have a go at the questions on page 3 of your booklet. You'll need to use some of the maps that I've sent you to help you answer these questions. Don't worry about the question about folding. You need another textbook for that. You don't have that at the moment. Don't worry about it. Okay, let's see what we've come up with. This is the map that you have in your booklets, showing you the rough ages of the rocks and where they're found around Britain. I ask you to colour in the areas of rocks that are affected by each of the orogenies. So we'll start with the Caledonian orogeny there. I've shaded this area in blue. You can see these are the older rocks that we find to the north and the west of Britain. The Variscan rocks that I've shaded in red affect rocks of the Upper Paleozoic. We find those in the west of Britain, but more perhaps to the south. Finally, we have the Alpine. The Alpine that I've coloured in green here affects the south and east of England. It looks like a much bigger area, but the effects really are very, very small. Okay, we can see then that these events, these plate collisions, have had different effects on the geology of Britain. It's something we need to bear in mind as we start unpicking some of the history of Britain's geology. What's our geological story? Because we have these major punctuations of these massive plate tectonic events. But to be able to do that, we need to understand the techniques we use to unpick this story. And that's for next lesson. I'll see you then.